Welcome to My New Day. It's Fight for Your Family Fridays, and we are in a series of 8 weeks talking about being best friends, best lovers.
We're featuring our book, Best Friends, Best Lovers, 8 Ways to be Satisfied in Love. And if you've been a part of our previous programs, you'll recognize that this is not about behavioral modification, but rather a true heart transformation.
And we're really excited about today's program in particular because we're talking about sweet conversation. So if you're having sweet conversation with each other, that's a great thing. But oftentimes there's conflict, there's the communication that isn't very sweet, but we're going to talk about what we can do in our lives to change our heart, not necessarily just our behavior.
Good. And there are beliefs that we've written on our heart that are just simple lies. And we do communicate on a very different plane, men and women from each other. And too often we view it as this huge chasm between us, and the two shall never meet. Well, today we're going to help you to understand what communication is and how you can better relate with one another.
And it just
Stay
makes
with
life
us.
just so much more interesting that way.
Yes, it
Different.
does.
We'll
Yes,
be right
it
back.
does. On today's program, we're talking about sweet conversation, and with that comes the idea of communication. Whenever you talk about marriage and relationships, there's always the communication that comes up. You know, somebody's miscommunicating and so on and so forth. But what I find is that much of our communication is exactly that, miscommunication. And I don't know of a better communicator than God Himself. There's no better communicator than God. And yet, His message is so misunderstood. You know, so the whole thing is, it's what are we listening through? You know, what are the beliefs of our heart? What grid, you know, are we listening with that we so construed the love, you know, and the acceptance and the forgiveness that God is communicating to us. I mean, we have so many things, you know, that dilute the purity of His love, you know, for us. So imagine how we then, as husbands and wives, you know, we try so much to communicate, but yet we miscommunicate so many times. And when we communicate, we're beginning a journey. And this journey is a journey to intimacy. Because when we got married, what did we want? Intimacy. And right away you think, I saw those eyebrows. And right away you begin to think, oh, that's sex, you know. And that's an element of it. But if you do not communicate, if you do not connect with each other, there's no way that you'll feel safe enough to be able to give yourself to that other person. And so you must, in intimacy, begin to pave that road with the precious stones of transparency, of openness, and honesty. You see, those are the gifts that we give each other that we might have sweet conversation.
Yes, and the reason that we miscommunicate is we think it's because it's the words we're speaking, but it's so different than that. You've probably heard the statistics that human communication takes place. Only 15% are the actual words, 85% are our body language. But I would like to say 85% is the heart that it comes from. Beginning of this program, we're talking about best friends being best lovers, being satisfied in love, and we're not talking about behavior modification. So we're not going to give you actual words to speak each other. We're saying what's really in your heart, because that is not only what's going to come out eventually, even if I can be having words, feelings towards Bob, and I'm not saying them with my words, but he can feel them. Men, have you ever felt things from your wife? Because there's issues going on in my heart that I'm not dealing with.
Mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. You know.
And the other thing is that, remember Bob was talking about how we don't hear the actual words people are saying? That's because we're filtering them through our heart. In other words, if I'm telling Bob that I love him, and I really am feeling that for him, if he's feeling like a loser or he's feeling like he doesn't measure up.
There's inadequacy, there's failure on my part, you know, there's been woundedness in my life. I'm carrying baggage, and everything inside of me says, you're unlovable, you're undesirable. And then my wife is trying to communicate, hey, I love you, and I'm sitting here, but I'm unlovable.
My words don't land.
How could you love me?
My words can't penetrate.
Whose problem is it? Mine.
Right.
Because there's a resistance that I set up against her. Why? Because I want to protect myself from any further hurt, any further harm, any further betrayal. You know, I'm unlovable, nobody likes me, you know, everybody feels sorry for me,
Right.
you know, sympathy, self-pity. But what we do, though, is that when one tries to communicate, then we put up our guard and say, no, that could not be true. Why? Because I believe a lie that has been written on my heart. I believe this to be more true than anything that she could ever say or do. And I have all of the evidence required, needed to support my case against you. You see? So no matter how that person is trying to communicate their love, you know, towards you, if there's a woundedness in your heart, if there's a brokenness of your heart, that love will not land.
So it really comes right back to personal transformation. We took very personal victory. We talked about if we're really going to have that best friends, best lovers relationship, we can't just deal with the words we say to each other. We got to deal with our own hearts and say, God, heal my heart to the place where I know that I'm lovable, that I'm full of worth, and not only will I receive His love, but because I've received it, I can give it away, and I can receive it from Bob as well.
One of the greatest gifts that we could ever, you know, give ourselves, but even to give God, would be this: I believe you.
Yes.
You know, if we would take a look at the promises that He has made to us, one of the greatest benefits to your life would begin to believe the words that He has spoken to you and over your life. You see, I mean, that would release so much benefit to your life, but because of our woundedness, but because of our past, but because of the things that we bring into it. You see, we say, God, you couldn't be that kind. You couldn't be that forgiving. You know, I mean, I'm so unworthy. I could never.
Right.
Do you see? So what we need to do is to begin to trust God, believe God, and allow Him to satisfy our heart.
It's true. And so when we want to have a new heart with new desires, we want to live from our heart, what in essence we're doing is we are removing the lies that have been written on our heart and replacing them with the truth. There have been words spoken over you that never should have spoken to you. There are things that have happened that have written on your heart, and the lie has stuck there. And if it's said that you are unlovable, then your heart will actually spend your whole life trying to verify that what it believes is true, and you will attract that rejection and that unlovable people to your life. It's
that will simply validate the lie that you believe in your heart. You see, you'll attract that to your life, and so that's why you must begin to exchange the lie for truth. Don't just expose it, but
No.
you've got to exchange it. You got to begin to write the truth upon your heart, because when things have been said about you, when things have been done to you, typically the things that are written upon your heart, okay, that become your belief system, that you know, your reset, the things that you go back to, your default, is simply this: somebody in authority, okay, somebody with extreme significance and power in your life has either said or done something to you, and it was accompanied with a whole lot of emotion. I mean, it was impactful. There was an event that took place, and all of a sudden that becomes an imprint upon your heart. And these tend to happen at a very young age. And I tend to call them the bruises of Satan. You know, the enemy wants to bruise your life, you know, from conception to infancy, you know, to your young years, to your teens, all the way through, trying to bruise you and to imprint upon your heart that, number one, unlovable and undesirable.
But the good news is that Jesus wants to heal our broken heart. And that's what we want to talk about today. So I think the first step in receiving the healing of Jesus when it comes to our brokenness and our broken heart and the words that are spoken to is identify the lies that are on our heart. Does that sound like a great idea? Let's identify
Easy.
some of the lies that have been written on our heart. Let's go ahead and remove them and replace them with the truth. And these lies that we're going to talk about today, and we're only going to be able to cover two of them today, is really in relation to marriage. There are lies that we believe within our marriage that we don't even know are the root of our conversation. So let's go ahead. This is exciting for me because we're going to go ahead and take those weeds out of our heart from the very root. And one of the lies that women believe, Bob, is that, are you ready for this? This is a lie that most of us believe, and that is, my husband is a disappointment. We believe, I'm sorry, oh, is that bad news for you? I'm
No.
sorry, okay.
No, it's just that everybody in TV land, they're like, yeah, but he is. I mean, the dude is loser one. You know, Audrey, what are you saying?
No, the thing is that we as women have such incredible, dreamy, fantasy expectations of what our marriage to be, and there's no way you as guys would be able to live up to those. And I hate to bring you the news today, but you have been a disappointment in one way or another, and we are going to have to choose to know what we're going to do with that information. And I'm going to start with how we're going to identify the lie, because it is a lie. Okay, let's just say that is a lie, and I'm not going to think about that all day long. And when I do, it just gets bigger and bigger and grows and grows. Am I right? What we think about will grow. And so when God made Eve, God made Adam first. Okay, so when God made Adam, he said it was good. And when he made Eve, he said it is very good. Exactly. So there's an inherent characteristic in every woman to take what is good and make it very good. So we get our husband and say, we're going to take this good guy and we're going to make him amazing.
And we become Project One. You know?
And it's because we thought we married Prince Charming, and in some ways we feel like we married a loser in aluminum foil. Okay? That's not a nice thing to say. But there are things that happen, and we don't want to say it out loud, but we say, how can I make this better? Well, I'm telling you right now, I think about that, and I remember the enemy of my husband's soul is one thing. We have traveled all around the world speaking at marriage conferences. Every single man is battling the very same thing. And if I can know this, I am going to want to fight for my husband with everything that I've got. And that one thing that each man is dealing with is worthlessness. He's going to feel like he's a failure, and he will either make up for that and try extra hard, or he will just retreat and get emotionally detached. And so if I have the secret of how the enemy's fighting, I get to be not his source, but the most significant person in his life to combat that worthlessness in my husband. And so I get to rise up, and instead of speaking to the negative things, the ways he's disappointed me, and thinking about things, I choose in my thoughts to think about the ways that I respect this man. I get to choose to look at him through the eyes of God, that says, this is the Son of the Most High God. He is an amazing anointed man, and there is no one more anointed than to be married to me than him. And I just start imagining these things, dwelling on them, making lists of them, thinking about them, thinking of things that are pure and right and holy. Do you remember? God tells us how to think. And what happens in our heart is we start to diffuse the lie that our husband is a disappointment. And I'll tell you, when we raise the bar here on our husband, when we raise the bar, what happens is,
call him high.
I call him higher, but the thing is, I don't have to change it, because when I am speaking to the worth, all of a sudden he just begins to rise up and become that man, but it has nothing to do with me. I get to be a significant contributor, and my language has a lot to do with it. So I just want to help us women to what kind of language we can use, because I know if you're anything like me, Audrey, how do I do this? What can I do? What can I say? And this is it. Take time and think about this. Bob, say this, and I'll practice with my husband because he's right here. Bob, you're right. Go ahead and practice, guys. Like, look at your husband. Say, Bob, say, you're right.
Yeah, use your husband's name.
Yeah,
but
you're right.
You're right.
Okay,
Yeah.
and try this one. Try this one. Say, wow, that's a great idea. Let's do it your way.
There you go.
Say it.
Great idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do it your way.
Here's what happens to your guy. He laughs. He feels extremely uncomfortable, right? And his eyes have rolled back into his head, and it's like, you don't believe that. You're only saying that because they're asking you to. You see, and the whole thing is ladies, we'll do anything for you. I mean, really, we would lay down our lives for you, everything. All that we ask is that you'd believe in us. You are number one cheerleader in our lives. Mm-hmm. And I begin to think that women, you don't understand the significance that your words and actions have. There are things, that we battle on the inside, but all we need is just a little pat on the head, a little scratch in the back. You're doing great. You're awesome. That type of thing. And guess what? It's like, really? And it's like you start feeling good about each other. you know, and it's amazing how powerful, ladies, you are in our lives.
Well, the other language that we have is for women, and I know that there's things that you think about.
Well, this is a little more difficult simply because we still don't get it. And the whole idea has to do with feelings. Ladies, you've got a lot of them, you know, and you've got a lot of emotion.
Yes.
And you've got a lot of words to use
Yes.
throughout the day.
Yes, we do.
And you want to express things to us, and you
Yes.
want us to express things to you,
That's
which really
nice.
doesn't,
No,
you know,
we love
work that well.
Yeah, we love that.
But the whole thing is that when you when you come across, you know, with your feelings and issues and things that are going on and all these kinds of things, typically what we want to do is just fix the problem.
Mm-hmm.
We just want it to stop. You know, just stop already.
Okay, so what
you know?
I did was
And-
I helped Bob in this. And what
Yeah.
I did was I helped him. I said, sweetie, I'm starting to go to my girlfriends with all my stuff because they really, we know we speak each other's language and they get it. So I said, honey, when I have come to you with a lot of feelings, they might be, I just have to vent. And so what I'd like you to do, and I actually taught him, okay, ready for this? I said, just
It's important.
look into my eyes, give me a non-sexual touch, you know,
Yeah.
play with my face
Yeah.
or my hair or something, and just look at me while I talk and sort of nod, and then just say, if anything, just say these words, wow, I'm so sorry that happened. That's it. That's it. Right there.
Imagine if you tried that. Now, because we teach this, she came to me last night and she had a difficult moment.
Yes.
And it was all of a sudden her imagination is going wild, blowing things out of proportion.
Yeah, it happened
you know,
just last night.
exaggerating.
And I
you know?
wanted to just
And the
go-
whole thing is that it makes no sense because you're believing a lie.
Yes.
You know, but you see, reason is out the window at this moment. She's not asking me to fix her. She's not asking me to resolve anything. All she's asking is that I would listen. And last night she gave to me, and I, held her, and I looked at her, and I listened, and everything going through my mind is, oh, I'm so sorry this happened to you. But then I knew it was like, no, that's what we say every single conference. I got to come up with something different. You know what I mean? But the whole thing is that what you need to do is validate the feeling.
Yeah.
You know, it's not up to you to correct it. It's not up to you to reason it out and to bring logic to it. All that you need to simply do is validate it.
Because we as women, we just have two really important needs, and that is to feel safe and to feel like we are a priority. And I know that it helps me so much when you did that, even last night. And as soon as he did that, he held me, and I was ready to just retreat by myself and deal with it by myself. And then I actually...
She interrupted my news.
I did.
You know, she interrupted...
It was TV time?
No, but you see, those are interruptions. And the whole thing is, guys, is right away, you're like, wait, what about, no, you lay those down.
Yes.
You know, and
You did really good.
Man, you just take a moment, you see, and boy, life will go well with you.
And because I understand my need and I recognize my need, it's important that the truth is that my feelings do matter. And I do try and make them into less words and say, Bob, this is the bottom line. This happened. This is the way it made me feel. And I just really, really feel sad.
Because when I do that, all of a sudden I'm placing great value on her. You see, rather than minimizing it, all of a sudden I do make her priority one. You know, and it doesn't make any sense to me. You know, why would you even think this way? Why would you even feel this way? No, that's not the issue. I'm so sorry that this has happened to you. I'm so sorry that you feel this way. And that's it. You know, you're all looking at me and you're trying to figure out, how do I make this better? You don't. You know, you really don't. You can't go in there and try to, unscramble all of this spaghetti. You just let her have her stuff, and you just be there for her.
Exactly. And then when it comes down to communication, we all have different communication styles. And we've done entire 8-week series on what these are. But basically what happens is we come with different methods of communication into our marriage. For me, I came from a home that was very passive. We never talked.
And my background was far more aggressive.
So we got
and so we
married.
had different communication styles. So we bring that into our marriage. She's passive. I'm aggressive.
The first
Guess
time
who
he
wins?
yelled,
I do.
First time he yells at me, the first month of marriage,
But I didn't yell.
I was devastated.
All I did is raise my voice to make a point.
But I had never been yelled at in my life, and so
And
I
I
thought
didn't
this
yell
is
at you.
crazy.
Do you see,
Yeah,
you know,
do you
how
see
the
the
conflict that can
miscommunication?
happen here? You know, I didn't do anything different than how I would treat my brothers. Well, guess what? This isn't my brother, you know, and this isn't my mama either.
Right.
You know, this is my wife. And so, you know, our communication styles we need to look at as well. And then you come and you have this, you know, passive aggressive, you know, lifestyle, you know, which is one that Audrey has developed very well in order to. No. I mean, we're aware of these
Yeah,
things,
we
but
are.
she developed it very well in order to get
Because
her
I
way.
never wanted to yell at him, so I made sure that I did my very best. We'll go ahead and talk about this a little bit more in
You
one
wanna
of
bring
the
that
weeks
up
to
in the
come.
close?
Well, just a little bit more in the weeks to come. But the cool thing is that Jesus told us to speak the truth in
Speaking
love.
truth in love.
And so that has really helped us out.
And that, you see, that's where it is. You know, he comes to me,
Yes,
you see, and he doesn't condemn me,
right.
you see, but he brings truth to my life.
Yeah.
But I know first and foremost that he loves me, that he's not against me, but rather for me.
Right.
You see, and so if you haven't laid that foundation, hold back on the truth. You know, you need to love one another.
Exactly.
You need to prefer one another as being more important than yourself. You see, and when you speak the truth in love, then you're able to walk away from that passive aggressive.
Yes.
You see, you're able to be upfront
Yes.
and be able to communicate well exactly what is in your heart and in your desires.
And that's sweet conversation.
That's sweet. We'll take a short break. We'll be back to close the program right after this. When we begin to talk about intimacy, for some, that can be extremely exhilarating, so exciting to be intimate, to be face to face. And then for another, it could just be bone-chilling scary. You know, because what if I'm going to be discovered for who I am? You see, and that again then is exposing the lie of your heart, undesirable and unlovable. But the whole thing is that what you need to do is get away and allow God to begin to speak His identity, you see, His value and His worth into you. You see, you as husband and wife are perfectly united, perfectly designed, and you need to begin to communicate more at a heart level rather than just getting business done, what's the
Yes.
next affair, you know, those types of things. Hey, you need to begin to communicate on a heart level where you are safe with each other.
So as we apply this to life today, I would really ask that if you recognize the lies that we are talking to on your heart, if you are a woman and you recognize that when it's time to communicate, it's hard because the lie I believe is that he's a disappointment. So I cause my voice and my words continually to verify that.
And I
if
tear 'em
that's you, don't try and just change your words. Ask God to heal your heart and maybe have that deep conversation with him instead of being passive aggressive.
And if you're finding it hard to find something of significance and value and worth in your husband, you know, because you just simply see him as an idiot. I mean, we've talked with people. They're like, wait, my husband, he's in prison.
What am I supposed to be
What am I supposed to
thankful
do?
for? There is something
Oh,
that you respected
there
about
really
him
is.
when you married him. Think about that thing. And, if
And that
you-
exact story, if I might just say, that exact story is dynamic because that man was released and she was there. I
And
mean, she
ready
had
to speak
visited
worth
him.
into
Oh,
him.
it was awesome.
And if you're a man and that you are just saying, I can't communicate because her feelings just go out the door.
I
Well,
don't get it. I don't
deal with your heart
understand.
and say, you know what, I'm going to love her unconditionally. I'm going to listen and I'm going to validate because what she has to say is important.
Men, make sure that you make your wife priority number one and that her feelings really do matter.
We'll be back next week on Fight for Your Family Fridays to talk more about being best friends and best lovers.
We'll see you. Bye-bye.